Welcome to the European news on September 30th in 2021. Today we start in Brussels. That's in Belgium. The European Union has released a total of 5.4 billion euros to cushion the consequences of Brexit for the remaining 27 member states. The fund, which the EU countries finally approved in Brussels on Tuesday, is primarily intended to support the regions, sectors and communities most affected, as the representation of the member states announced in Brussels says. Accordingly, 646.6 million euros should flow to Germany. The funds are awarded, among other things, according to the trade volume of a member state with Great Britain. Ireland and France receive the highest sums. Ireland, which shares the only land border with the United Kingdom, is to receive 1.1 billion euros to absorb the disadvantages of Britain's exit from the EU. France is to receive 735 million euros. Much of this goes to the country's fishing industry. As a result of Brexit, the latter lost around a quarter of their access to British waters. London and Brussels agreed on a trade agreement in December last year. However, those new customs regulations created additional costs and bureaucracy for businesses on both sides of the Channel. And now let's go to Paris and France. The former EU chief negotiator in the Brexit talks, Michel Barnier, sees a connection between the fuel crisis in Great Britain and the country's exit from the EU. Barnier told the British broadcaster BBC that freedom of movement for workers is an integral part of the EU's internal market. Great Britain must now face the consequences of leaving the EU. Due to the shortage of petrol at the petrol stations, the British government mobilized the army to deliver fuel if necessary. There is enough fuel in the refineries, but too few truck drivers. And there are long queues and what we call hamster shopping at the gas stations. People have trouble getting to work. The largest public service union demands that systemically important employees such as doctors and nursing staff can refuel preferentially. It is estimated that there's a shortage of 100,000 truck drivers in the UK. And now we have to go back to Brussels and Belgium. According to the EU Commission and EU consumer protection authorities, Volkswagen should compensate all consumers in the EU affected by the Dieselgate scandal, including those residing outside Germany, according to a statement published on Tuesday. Dieselgate became famous 6 years ago. To date, not all consumers have been compensated. There are court rulings exposing the unfair treatment of consumers by Volkswagen, and yet the automaker is unwilling to work with consumer organizations to find appropriate solutions for consumers. As I wrote to the company last year, not only consumers in Germany, but all consumers must be compensated, said EU Justice Commissioner Didier Reynders. And now we go to Germany, to Berlin. Germany is expected, as I shortly mentioned, to receive around 647 million euros in EU funds to mitigate the consequences of Brexit. As the Council of the European Union announced in Brussels, the so-called Brexit Fund and the provisional distribution of funds were finally decided on Tuesday. This could now support public and private companies facing additional cost losses or other adverse economic and social effects following the UK's exit from the EU. Additional costs could be incurred, for example, for customs checks and the new administrative procedures. In Germany, among other things, the money will benefit fishermen who depend on fishing in British waters. For example, short-time work benefits as well as retraining or training can be financed. Our goal is to help those most affected in a difficult time to adapt to the consequences of Brexit, commented Zvonko Černač for the current Slovenian presidency. A total of 5.47 billion euros will be distributed via the Brexit Fund. The largest amounts, as I said earlier in this video, will go to Ireland, France, and I haven't mentioned the Netherlands yet. And really, Ireland is quite in a very special position. As I said, they have the only land border with Britain, and Germany is on fourth place, being affected by Brexit. Because the bottom line is that the Federal Republic will probably end up paying significantly more money into the Brexit fund than it will get out of it. The German share of funding in the next EU budget is estimated to be around 24%. The 647 million euros, however, only correspond to about 12% of the Brexit fund, which is filled through the budget. So it's really about affected. And we have to go to Brussels again, because the Council on Wednesday adopted its position at first reading on the proposed directive on the disclosure of income tax information by certain undertakings and branches, commonly referred to as the Public Country-by-Country Reporting Directive, paving the way for its final adoption. The adoption of the Council's position follows a provisional agreement reached with the European Parliament in June. The CBCR directive aims to enhance the corporate transparency of big multinational companies. It will require certain multinational undertakings with revenue of more than 750 million euros to disclose publicly in a specific report the income tax they pay. For the first time, non-European multinationals doing business in the EU through subsidiaries and branches will also have to comply with the same reporting obligations as EU multinational undertakings. The reporting will take place within 12 months of the date of the balance sheet for the financial year in question. The directive sets out the conditions under which a company may defer the disclosure of certain information for a maximum of 5 years. The proposed directive also stipulates who bears responsibility for ensuring compliance with the reporting obligation. The proposed directive, first tabled in April 2016, is part of the European Commission Action Plan for a Fairer Corporate Tax System. The European Parliament adopted its position at first reading on March 27th in 2019. Negotiations between the co-legislators started in March 21 and resulted in a provisional agreement on June 21. Which points such as the transition period and the safeguard clause being finalized. The next step before the directive can enter into force is the formal approval of the provisional agreement by the European Parliament. The directive will enter into force on the 20th day following its publication in the official journal of the European Union. Member States will have 18 months from the entry into force of the directive to transpose it into national law. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.